Hello, I'm Sylvia. I'm here in the orchard, which is in the village. It's a community garden. It's maintained by members of the public in the community, and it's open to the public for people to look round. I come here quite often for photography inspiration, and I find it a very beautiful, calming place. There's always birds and there's always plenty of flowers and things going on. I came here a couple of days ago and I did some photos, some flower photos and some abstracts. I'm been involved in a thread on Facebook, which is talking about the discussion of the creative process and the way you think when you're doing photography. And so I've decided to do this vlog to talk about what I did on the day when I came to take these photos. Now, the thought process starts before you even come out. So I'd come here a couple of weeks ago, and taken photographs of the cherry blossom with vintage lenses, and I especially wanted the bouquet in the background then, so that I've got all these bubble shapes of out of focus bits in the background. But this time I decided that the cherry blossom was probably past its best, and what I really wanted to do was to take some pictures of just close-ups. My mojo's been missing for a while and hadn't been feeling in the mood to take any photos, but a couple of days ago the light was quite nice, and I decided that it would be quite nice to actually just come out and just try and take a few photos, even if they weren't very good, just to get out. And it's only across the green for me, so it's not far to come. So the thought process starts before, and I thought what I wanted to do, because the cherry blossom was no longer there and the flowers might not be fully out, that I would just do some close-ups abstracts. So with that in mind, I brought along a macro lens and a crop sensor camera, so I could get in a little bit closer. So those are my thought processes. You can have a little look around and see the whole garden. As I see, it's not really very big. It's called the orchard because there's a lot of apple trees, and there's apple trees growing up the walls as well. There's also a damson tree and a little pear tree. So here in this conservatory they have exhibitions. So it's called the Orchard Gallery, and they have exhibitions you can book, and you can put pictures in. There's often handicrafts and things, not just photography. So when I first came in through here, the first thing I saw was these flowers here. Now the background's a bit fussy, so taking the wide shot was not really an option. Plus I'd come with a specific idea of doing close-ups. So what I decided to do this time was to shoot through the flowers, and where you put the flowers very close up, they're out of focus, and then shoot through to the things that are in focus behind. I mean, this the Osmo Pocket here is quite wide angle, so it's not the same effect that you'll get. So that was the first image that I decided to take. Then I started to look around. This bit at the moment isn't that exciting. At various different times of the year, the various different areas of the garden sort of come into their own. The next thing I looked at were these tulips here. Now the tulips are quite dark, and I was looking at various shapes on the tulips and looking down on the tulips. I took a shot which I didn't really like that much, and so I moved on. I decided that I wanted a light, airy feeling, because I like my flowers to be sort of bright and light coloured, pastel-y sort of atmosphere to them. And the tulip there was a bit dark, didn't quite, and I couldn't find the right shapes on it. So the next thing I did was, I was just wandering about, having a look. This little pear tree here, the flowers have already gone on it, and the apple trees, there's various different types of apple in the orchard here. They're sort of not that exciting. They're certainly not as good as they were last year. There was a lot more of them last year. Some are not out yet, they're just starting, but I didn't find them particularly inspiring. And then I spotted this tulip here, and I liked the shapes. What drew me to this was the shape of the petals, the curves. I like the base, but there's also little tones in the pinks, and tones of sort of yellowy greens and whites, and the shapes of the tones. So once I'd spotted it, I sat down here, and also because I can sit on the bench, I can hold my camera very still, because I tend to shoot handheld. As soon as I started looking through the viewfinder, I started seeing lots of little shapes and things, and I went very close, probably the closest focusing more or less that I could get, and started looking at the abstract shapes. There was also a bug walking about on there, and I was watching him and taking a few shots of him. The pictures I took of him got bad chromatic aberration on them, so they're not really usable. But there was a couple of shots I quite liked from this. So it's a little bit of inspiration. And once I'd started taking these shots, I started to feel a bit more inspired, and I sort of felt as if I'd actually found something. And because my mojo's been missing, you know, I'm finding it more difficult to find things. I'm just not in the mood, and I'm just finding it very difficult. The next thing I spotted were these, and they're right down on the ground. They're very small. They might look bigger in here. But these little irises, and inside the middle of the irises there are all these little spiky fingery things. And I had to lie on the ground here amongst all this bark chippings, and I got bark chippings stuck all over my jumper. But I'd spotted all these finger-like things in the irises, and this was really exciting for me. I really liked these, and I took quite a lot of shots and started moving around and trying to get shapes. I love shapes. I like things that come in from the corner. I like diagonals, and I just like curves and different shapes. So the composition of it was quite interesting for me, and I really enjoyed taking them. I then moved on to see what else was around, and I quite like these little flowers, but I didn't bother taking any pictures of them. And then I'd spotted over in this corner there was a bit of colour, so I decided to investigate here. I like these curves, but the background's I like the shapes of the curves with the flowers, but the background's very fussy. So I took a couple of close-ups, but I wasn't that interested in that. They weren't working that well for me that day, and the sun was out, which meant that they were very, very bright, so it's difficult to control the highlights and keep nice detail. And then it's an old favourite of mine is forget-me-nots, They remind me of my late husband, and they were one of his favourite flowers. So I spent like a minute or so just taking some close-ups of them. I also like these stars on this, but by the time I'd finished doing the forget-me-nots, I'd more or less had enough. And I'd only been here like 15-20 minutes, and I felt that I'd sort of more or less had enough. So I was just popping down here to see if there was anything else taking my mind, taking my interest, and then I spotted the daisies. Which are actually quite tall at the moment. I didn't bring the water spritzer. I like to put water on the daisies so that you can see all the water and spritz them with a bit of water, so you've got little water droplets in them. I laid on the floor and I took a few shots of these. I found they were a bit too close together, so they were sort of encroaching on each other, so one would be in focus and then there'd be a big white blob. And it didn't work that well. I wasn't that happy with it because of that. And then I got up from there and some people had arrived in the orchard, and so that was it really. And that was my little 20 minutes or so in the orchard. And I do that quite often. I keep coming in and seeing what's out. I used to work in the orchard as well. I used to be part of the community that sort of give their time and work for the community. And I used to do the lawns and I used to do the composting. But that was quite a long time ago when I was working, and they changed the hours and I just stopped doing it because the hours didn't fit my work time anymore. There's a few bluebells in here. When this gets a bit longer, they keep this as a meadow to grow the meadow flowers, and they'll open this and put a little path through so that you can walk through the path. And then I'll come through and I'll lie amongst the grass and take shots at ground level, because I find it's that different perspective. And once I look through the lens, it's as though I enter the world of the flowers, and I see it from a different perspective. I love to see it from the ground level, so it looks as if it feels to me as if I'm an insect and I'm just walking about amongst a big forest of grass, and there's all these flowers above me and in front of me, and it's like a magical forest, even though it's actually only a bit of grass. So that's my thinking here. And as I say, I come here quite frequently because I just love the atmosphere here. I have literally thousands of pictures which I've taken over the years in the orchard. Sometimes I use the lens baby to give a soft, ethereal look. Sometimes I put textures on. I've got pictures where I've got taken pictures underneath clover, and the clover, there's clover on the lawn here, and sometimes it starts to grow before they cut the lawn, and the clover gets quite high, and you can get your camera so that it looks as if you're on the ground and the clover's quite tall. So that's my thinking, and that was my little day. And when you've been in the orchard, there's the ice cream parlour outside. It's nice to have an ice cream and just sit in the orchard. And that's the entrance to the orchard beside the National Park Centre and Tourist Information Centre. So thank you for joining me on my little wander in the orchard. And I'll add in some of the pictures that I took a couple of days ago to go with it. See you again soon. Bye.